Hey guys, happy Friday. Welcome to Sippin' and Spillin'. I am Sid. Thanks for joining me. A couple updates for you guys today. I'll start with the health update. So, if you guys have been following along on Sippin' and Spillin', or if you caught any of our lives, I didn't really talk about it on 3 Mississippi in any of our long format videos because it wasn't really applicable. But you guys know at the beginning of January, which basically put on my butt for a while. Ooh, bumpy part of the road here, guys. Apologies. I'm navigating right now because there's still some areas that I don't know as well, and so I still need my GPS to get certain places. I can pretty much get there, but I don't trust myself 100%. So, anywho, I have to have my GPS running, so I had to have my phone plugged in, which means I can't have my microphone plugged in, so hopefully the road noise isn't too bad. It should be okay. Anywho, in the beginning of January, right after the New Year, I was knocked on my butt. We had gone up to Memphis for the day with the girls while they were still on winter break. Frankie and one of her friends, and my friend Beth with her daughter, and then I started feeling real sick, and I was super dizzy and just ended up throwing up while we were in Memphis, and then got to the point where I just couldn't even open my eyes because every time I did, I would vomit. And so, and I wish I was exaggerating, but it just felt like everything was spinning. So, it had me basically flat on my back in bed for a few days with minimal movement because the whole world was spinning for me. And ended up, once I was able to function a little bit, I went to urgent care down the road, and they were like, I've got a vestibular migraine, which, I had never heard of before. I'm very familiar with lots of different types of migraines, but I had never heard of that type of migraine before. And it basically, it's a nasty one, and it can linger after you have an episode. The vertigo aspect of it can linger for months, forever, anyway, I was really kind of like, great, cool, this is going to be fun to deal with. So my vertigo was getting better, but it was still there, and they gave me some medicine, which I was hesitant to take because a lot of the medications that they give you for different types of migraines are pretty intense. And, if you think about it, it makes sense because they're all kind of brain medications. They're nervous system medications. They're trigger, some of them deal with your different levels of chemicals essentially in your brain. I won't get into all the different ones, but it messes with your brain chemistry, and that makes me nervous, okay? Anyway, the one that the gal wanted to put me on made me nervous, and having worked in pharmacy for 20 years, as soon as she said the name of it, because I said, well, what are you thinking of putting me on, besides the stuff for the nausea? And I said, well, don't I need to titrate that dose, which means I need to, start it at a certain level and titrate up to a dose, and then it's one of those medications where you can't just stop taking it. You have to titrate, you have to slowly dose yourself off of it, because if you stop taking it, in this particular instance, you can have a seizure. Even if you're not taking it for seizures or whatever. Anyway, and she was like, oh, let me check. And she was like, oh, you're right, yeah, you should definitely titrate the dose. So I was like, good, glad, I was like, there's times like that where I'm very glad that I have the background and the knowledge that I have to ask the questions. Even though I've been out of the game for a while, there's certain things that I just remember, and I go, hey, doc, isn't that this? And they'll go, oh yeah, glad you said that, you're right, So anyway, so I've been taking that essentially now for a month. And about a week and a half ago, I noticed that my dizziness was now finally gone completely. It had subsided substantially, but I was still having a little residual, like every now and then, and times where I'd go, ooh, okay, gotta hold the wall for a second, little bouts of it, but it was nothing crazy. But this last week and a half, knock on wood, it was seemingly fine. But of course, in the meantime, I called our regular physician, made an appointment to kind of go over everything with him and see what he said, whatever. Now, we live in a small podunk town. This is not a super common type of migraine, even though it is like, what is it? I think it's like the second most common reason for people to have vertigo, but it's still not a very common thing, right? A lot of doctors, I joined a bunch of Facebook groups to kind of see what people said helped them or didn't help them, whatever, in the vestibular migraine community, just to kind of see what was up, because I didn't know a lot about it, and information online, as it sometimes can be, was a little sketch and wasn't super informative sometimes. And so anyway, I thought, well, there's no way, and I'm reading these people's testimonies in there saying, I've gone to 3 different neurologists and they'd never even heard of a vestibular migraine, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go to the doctor in my small little town and he's going to look at me like I'm crazy when I tell him what I have, even though the gal in my podunk little town at the urgent care knew what it was and diagnosed me with that. Mike and I had already kind of diagnosed me with that, but I didn't tell her that going into it, just because I didn't want to bias her in any way. I just simply described my symptoms, and she came back with, I think this is what you have. So I was like, okay, fair. So anyway, again, I went into him not knowing that has, was the situation. Just described my symptoms and whatever, and I did say, that, and he was like, oh yeah, and he started rattling off all this stuff about vestibular migraines and all, super knowledgeable about it, and I was like, kudos to him for knowing all that stuff. But anyway, so he agrees with me, because I don't want to be on this medication long term, especially if it's not something that I need to be on long term. Vestibular migraines are one of those things where, just like with any migraine, it could be a one and done. I could have one and I could never have another one the rest of my life. Or I could have one every month, or one every week, or, whatever. Obviously, I don't want that to be the case. So he said, look, let's do this. Let's leave you on this medication solidly for 1 more month. And then next month, let's start tapering you off of it, and titrating you back down till we get you to nothing. So, by the end of the next 2 months, you'll be off of it completely. And he said, of course, if you have another episode, or you start to have your dizziness come back, if the vertigo returns, start taking it regularly again and call me, and we're going to have to dig into this further. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. So I feel better. Number one, that I've got, concrete answers and a game plan, that he was familiar with it, that he was like, sometimes it's this and that, and it can just be a one and done. And I just felt better after talking to him about it, and that he was so knowledgeable about it. And so I'm relieved, because it's not, it's not like if you have a cold, or if you have, like when I tweak my back or whatever, it's like I can still function. I can hobble around, or I can, I can take some cold meds and I can function, and I can still go do my chores. This was, I cannot move to get up to go to the bathroom because the room was spinning so badly. My eyes were jittering in my head so badly. I felt like I was walking in a rolling barrel, to the point where someone had to lead me to the bathroom because I couldn't walk there without falling. That's how bad it was. So needless to say, I couldn't make it down the stairs. I couldn't make it out to the animal pens to help, to do chores. Could not function. Forget driving Frankie to anything. Forget just living your normal life. I was in bed with a thing covering my eyes, the whole 9 yards. So that's not something that's super feasible to have repeating itself frequently. Not to mention the fact that it was super unpleasant, because it's, I don't know if y'all have ever been really, really seasick, or really, really drank too much and felt like the room was spinning. And I told the doctor, I was like, he said something about, man, it's like, you know, it's like if you've been drinking and the room's spinning. I go, yeah, but like cranked up to 11. I go, it's like no other room spinning. I can't, like you say, oh yeah, the room was spinning. It was like being on, you know, those tilt-a-whirl things that you go to at the fair, where you're up, like back in the 80s, where you're up against the wall, the centrifugal force thing, and you just spin until, like, that's what it felt like. It was just awful. But anyway, don't mean to like complain about it. I'm like super happy that it only lasted a few days, that the dizziness subsided, and yes, while I had the dizziness for almost a month, at least it wasn't as bad as it was in the beginning, and I kind of learned to function with it until it kind of just went away. Until one day I was like, hey, I'm not dizzy anymore. Because I guess I just kind of got used to it, to the point where it was like I almost didn't notice it right away when I wasn't dizzy anymore. So no seizures. That's no seizures. And so I do have to be, like I said, I do need to be careful when I wean off of it and look for the warning signs of things. But, you know, that kind of stuff comes with a lot of medications, and I don't like being on medications when I don't need to be. But this was one of those situations where it was necessary for a period of time. Hopefully only a period of time. So we're going to see what happens over the next 2 months, but that was good. So right now I'm driving through the woods, not on the way to grandmother's house. Actually on the way to Tractor Supply, which will be part of Friday's video. Friday's video. What's today? Today's Friday. Not Friday, Sunday's video. Friday's video is coming out today on 3 Mississippi. I'm not sure what time Mike has it set up to post. We usually post those around 3 o'clock-ish if he's on his game. I think he has it set up to post because I finished it a few days ago. But I think this week we're finally back on schedule from Christmas and me being out of commission for a while. Where I think this week we're finally, knock on wood again, finally back on schedule. So I've got some exciting stuff lined up, which I'm stoked about, that we're going to be working on. And we got Sunday's video, which is part of why I have to go to Tractor Supply. I got to get some more bedding. They don't sell the type of bedding that I like to use, the horse pellets, in town. I have to go to Starkville for some other things too. It's not like I'm making a special trip just to get horse pellets. I always try to make my, you know, group my trips into Starkville or into Tupelo when I need other things too. Excuse me. But we gotta go get a couple of those things. I gotta get some goat dewormer as well, because next week, which will also be, of course, doing a video on, which I know I talked about it probably around about the end of December, beginning of January, when I talked about it with you guys. But then again, a bunch of stuff happened. I got sick, and you know, we ended up not having Jen, my friend who's got some intact bucks, bring her buck over to hang out with my girls so that we can have the babies. So it does push the timeline out a little bit for the girls to kid, but it's fine. It'll be a little later in the season. It's not the end of the world. They'll, by my math, if we do it this next week, you know, it'll be like, you know, beginning to mid-July. So I didn't go count it exactly on my calendar. I just kind of counted on my fingers real quick this morning. But so, you know, it's not super ideal, but it's not awful. That'll work. Which actually, you know, would work out okay because processing time would be during cold weather. So that's actually not too bad. And I'll have all the chickens processed by then, so I can kind of focus on the babies and the kidding process, because it'll be Anne's first time kidding, and it'll be Caroline's 1, 2, 3. Wait. 1, 2, 3. It'll be her 4th time kidding, and hopefully her 3rd successful kid. The first time was a miscarriage. It was about, I would guesstimate about she's going into her, what is this, her third season? No. Second season. 2021, 2022. Yeah, 2022. So this will be her second full season. Yeah. So had to do goat math. But anyway, so we'll see. Hopefully she'll do okay. I still have my reservations about her. I feel like she is not going to be a good mom. I feel like I am going to be bottle feeding those kids, or that Caroline's going to be taking over and I'm going to have to milk. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. We'll see what happens. Caroline's an excellent mother, but Anna is just very, and she has a different personality, and I just don't see her being as nurturing as Caroline. But I've been wrong before about animals in different situations. Not often, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So I'm excited for that next week. And next week we get our new livestock guardian puppy, Tashka. So I am very, very excited about that as well. So it'll be a twofer. We get one goat on loan and we get our new pup. So that'll be exciting towards the end of next week. Tried to do it earlier in the week, but Jen's schedule was a little bit crazy and my schedule was the opposite of her schedule. So it was just not going to jive for us to be able to make it work, unfortunately, any earlier than Friday. So let's hope that everything stays in line and we're able to do it. We're able to do it then. We'll see. We're hoping. And then I know Mike's itching to get started on the electric project in the shop, because there's a lot of things that kind of hinge on the electric project getting started so that other things can kind of fall in line. And one of the things that has to happen before that happens is he needs to kind of move some things around in the shop to, because some things that are up against the wall, he needs to be able to access those walls. So some of that stuff's got to get moved around and handled and swished and swooshed, which the shop, in my opinion, needs reorganized anyway. And in his opinion too. We're in agreement on that. It's not just me going, your shop is messy. Like, he doesn't like it right now either. So, you know, we'll get that done and hopefully be able to just, you know, work on that some this weekend, especially since it's supposed to be kind of rainy. So at least you'll kind of be, you know, inside, organizing, moving stuff, getting it ready so that when the weather is better, he can start the next process of getting the steps needed for the electric done, because it would be really great if he could get all of the electric stuff ready and squared away for the electric company to be able to come out, you know, by the beginning of March, if they're able to. I don't know what their waiting list is like, if they have a waiting list. I don't know. Like, I don't know how busy they are. You know, this time of year, like, it would, you know, it kind of depends on, like, is there a storm? Is there not a storm? You know, obviously if it's stormy, then they're busier because they're fixing lines and they're doing stuff. But right now it shouldn't be too bad. But, you know, we are fixing to get some more weather before winter is all said and done. So maybe it won't be more till, you know, official spring, more towards the end of March, that they're able to come out and do their piece. But if you can get the rest of it all done, that would be enough. So lots to do this weekend. We do need to move the chicken tractor and get it ready for this first batch of corn, which is going to be ready to go out in pasture in about 2.5 weeks. And then I've got another batch of 50 coming in, and then we'll be processing some, and I'd love to get another chicken tractor built in that time frame. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see. We'll see how much I can bat my eyes at Mike and see if I can talk him into building one more. The plan was to build 3, and we were going to do 150 birds, but I backed it off to 100 because I knew maybe I can get him to build one more before then, but definitely not 2. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna let you go, finish navigating the rest of the way here to ye old Tractor Supply. I appreciate you all. And I hope you all have a very blessed weekend. And as always, safety's off.